Okay, so we lost 4 Mons in the last battle of Pokemon Red. We lost 1 each in Blue and Yellow, first for being too cautious, and then for not being cautious enough. And then when we finally got to Gen 2, we hit a career worst 6 deaths. 8 including the post-game challenge. But this time, in Silver, we're going deathless. Isn't Silver identical to Gold? Shh, let me cook. This is the very first video game I've ever owned and played. That buff is going to make this run flawless. Expo the Cyndaquil is a much stronger starter than Chikorita, and I think this pick is a good way to get a deathless leg started. Like last time, we head to Mr. Pokemon's house, grabbing a couple levels along the way, and obtain the Togepi egg and a Pokedex. Elm calls, "Oh no, a robbery," and we encounter our rival to be in Cherry Grove. With a 2-level advantage over his Totodile, we're able to soundly defeat him. In keeping with the snitch trends, we let the cops know about Silver. We then deliver the egg, get our Pokeballs, and start the run. Starting at night gives us access to different encounters right away, which leads to us adding Noctis the Hoot to the team on Route 29. Hoot and Noctowl are generally underwhelming Pokemon that see very minimal improvements as the series progresses, so I like the idea of using and getting the line banned right now. On Route 30, we catch Splinter the Rattata. Instead of progressing and forgetting, we head to Route 46 and catch Boulder the Geodude. Our new members get some quick training in before progressing, much like last time. All 3 reach level 6, so we move on to battle our first trainers and finally reach Route 31. Running completely opposite to our situation in Gold, we only have a valid encounter on this route in the morning, so we move on to Violet City. Boulder takes the gym trainers on with no difficulties and reaches the cap, leaving the rest of the team to catch up. It's only 9, it'll take no time at all. Before getting to it, we find and catch Mango the Zubat in the Dark Cave, and then catch Shade the Ghastly in Sprout Tower. I know, I was surprised I didn't kill it too! With the team padded out, we get to training. Once everyone reaches the cap, we challenge Faulkner. The strategy is exactly the same as it was last time. Boulder takes the lead, but we pivot to Mango to dodge Mud Slap. Mango then uses Supersonic and starts chipping away with Leech Life. It's slow going, but the combination of Pidgey hitting itself and Leech Life nearly secure us the KO. Pidgey refuses to go down without a fight, and Mango is dropped dangerously low, so I get Boulder back out, who eats some dirt before knocking Pidgey out. When Pidgeotto is sent out, I pivot into Noctis. Noctis is able to use Growl a few times as we employ the PP stall strategy, and eventually send Boulder back out. Hilariously, I miscounted the PP of Mudslap and get hit by its last use before ultimately defeating Pidgeotto. But that's 1 badge down and the Deathless Dream still lives. Splinter is boxed in order for us to take the Togepi egg along with us. Still don't plan on using Togepi here, and we continue on our journey. Our Route 32 encounter ends up being Peak the Wooper, who I add to the team in Mango's place. Peak trains to catch up, and we head to Sprout Tower, climbing it to the top this time with Expo and Noctis' help. Once Silver's done thrashing the Elder, we take our turn. Peck and Tackle dispatch Bellsprout number 1. Boulder defeats Hoot with a barrage of tackles. And Expo defeats Bellsprout number 2, earning us the Flash HM. Taking the trainers of Route 32 on leads us to Union Cave. There's only 1 valid encounter in the cave at this point, and we thankfully do run into and catch Richard the Onyx. With some more experience under the belt, we eventually make it through the cave to Route 33, skipping past it and heading to Kurtz. Expo takes charge as we confront Team Rocket in the Slowpoke well, and he evolves into Quilava, priming himself for the eventual Bugsy gym battle. The rest of the grunts go down easy and the gym is open to us. Expo lights the trainers ablaze and the rest of the team gets some training in to reach the cap. The egg ends up hatching in this time, so we nickname our baby Huevo and resume the grind. Instead of wasting time grinding all 6 members up, I challenge Bugsy with Peak, Boulder, Noctis, and Expo at the cap. With its solid firepower, Expo is the lead. Ember is a crit one-shot on Metapod, and Scyther is immediately sent out. I pivot into Boulder, who takes 2 Fury Cutters before one-shotting with Rock Throw. I pivot into Noctis when Kakuna is sent out, and 2 Pecks are enough to earn us badge number 2. Silver's our next battle before we can head into Ilex Forest. Boulder is paralyzed by Ghastly, but ultimately ends it with a Magnitude 7. Croconaw is sent out next. Silver's totally cheating. Totodile evolves at level 18. Peak manages a single Tail Whip, but takes too much damage in the process. I pivot into Noctis and land a clutch Hypnosis, then start pecking at him. Croconaw wakes up right before the final peck connects and takes it out. Solid performance by Noctis. Expo takes on Zubat and easily defeats it with a combo of Embers, a Burn, and Tackle. Once he sulks off, I head back to the Pokemon Center and bring Richard out in place of Da Boulder. I like the idea of using and banning Onix and leaving the early game Titan that is Geodude free for a future leg. Richard trains to catch up to compensate for the powerful ally it replaced, and we finally head into Ilex Forest proper. After helping the apprentice out with his Farfetch'd issue and getting the Cut HM, we find and catch Tochukaso the Paris. And since she conveniently learns Cut, we decide to add her to the team in place of Shade. There was no way in hell I'd teach Expo a move as weak as Cut, as he was the only other Mon capable of doing so. Our new addition takes their turn training to catch up, and we head through the forest to our friend the Headbutt guy. Instead of backtracking to Azalea to knock a Pineco out of a tree that'll self-destruct and kill one of us, we press on to Route 34. The team's growth continues before we end up in Goldenrod City once again, running through our checklist of things to do, and heading underground to continue training. Richard headbutts his way through the Goldenrod gym trainers, and we go back to Route 34 where we find and fail to catch our Ditto encounter. That's fine. I didn't want you anyway. You're useless without the imposter ability. The team trains on Route 34. I told you all Pineco is good for self-destruct, and Peak evolves into Quagsire right at the level cap. With everyone but Huevo and Noctis at the cap, I challenge Whitney for our third badge. Tochukaso faces off against Clefairy. Things start well, but Metronome leading to Glare and immediately being fully paralyzed kills our Fury Cutter momentum, so I switch into Expo, who eventually defeats Clefairy. I stay in to use Leer once before switching to Richard when Miltank is sent out. Frustratingly for us, Miltank uses Attract right after missing Rollout. On top of the Hard Eyes blinding Richard, Stomp flinches a bunch and slows things down. Richard's rock hard defense keeps him safe and healthy, and Bind's chip damage along with some well-placed headbutts knock the Milky Monster down, netting us the Plain badge. Overcoming that tough battle without a death only increases my faith that we're going to end this leg deathless. Since we didn't head this way to train prior to defeating Whitney, all of the trainers on Route 35, 36, and the National Park provide the team with good experience, and we once again fail to catch Sudowoodo. Nice. Route 37 is swiftly biked through, and we enter Ecruteak City. The Kimono Girls provide tons of experience for the gang, but especially Expo. Seriously, he defeats all but the Vaporeon and Jolteon, and we move on to the Burn Tower to battle Silver again. Richard leads against Haunter, and Mudslap is a 2-hit KO after it curses and paralyzes us. Tochukaso faces off with Croconaw. Poison Powder connects, and we pepper in damage with Fury Cutter before getting dropped low and flinching to bite. Peak takes over and tanks while Poison finishes Croconaw off. Ice Punch and Surf easily KO Zubat, and Surf hits twice to finish the Magnemite off. Richard continues to take point as we enter the Ecruteak Gym and battle its trainers. Mudslap having low power, and Onix having low base attack make this a bit more painful an experience than it needs to be, so I let Noctis and Expo in on the fun. Noctis evolves into Noctowl, and the rest of the team gets to training. Tochukaso also evolves into Parasect, and eventually all of our key players reach the cap. Expo with Dig is undoubtedly the most important member in this battle with Morty, so he takes the lead against Ghastly, getting an easy OHKO. Hunter is sent out next and goes down to Dig as well. Despite the level increase, Gengar is faster than Expo, and Hypnosis lands, putting him to sleep. I pivot into Richard and Mudslap connects, lowering Gengar's accuracy, but Hypnosis ultimately connects again. I send Peek in and get a critical hit on Surf, defeating Gengar. That was huge and probably made things much easier than they otherwise would have been. The final Haunter is sent out and 2 Surfs finish the job, getting us badge number 4. I decided it'd be best to replicate our course of action from the Gold Run and head to Mahogany Town to challenge Team Rocket, but we have to address the egg in the room first. Huevo has been taking residence on this team for far too long, and I know that I don't want to use the Togepi line now. It's best we find a replacement now. With that in mind, we head to Route 38 and catch Meowmers the Meowth. I then head to Route 39 and find a Miltank. We catch Utters and have ourselves a Milky Monster of our own. I let Utters take the lead to grow against the plethora of trainers on Route 39, 38, and 42, and ultimately arrive in Mahogany Town. Route 43 and the Lake of Rage provide further training, and we kill the shiny Gyarados before speaking to Lance and getting our mission started. Utters and company bulldoze the grunts, and we make it through the base in record time. We make sure to pick up the TM for Thief, as this will come into play very soon. For now, we confront the executive in the office. Utters' strength one-shots Zubat, and Raticate lands a crit quick attack before going down to strength and stomp. I switch into Richard when Coughing is sent out, forever fearing self-destruct, and eventually get the KO with Headbutt. We take the password learned from Murkrow and confront the other executive. Expo's Dig does half to Arbok, and we take little damage from Bite before ending it with Dig again. Murkrow deals more damage as we trade and eventually take it out, and Gloom goes down to 2 Embers, only using Acid once. Richard is then our Mon of choice to take out the Electrode, only needing to tank 1 self-destruct before we grab Whirlpool from Lance and move on. Utters learns Thunder Punch, and we take on the Mahogany Gym Trainers before leaving to complete our next side quest. Noctis learns Thief, and we head back to Route 38 to find Magnemite. Despite being banned, Magnemite can still prove useful to us as they have a very small chance of holding a Metal Coat, the item we need to evolve Richard into Steelix. After what feels like an eternity of searching, we finally snag a Metal Coat and immediately bust out the link cable. Whitney wasn't enough, we're copying Jasmine out here too. We head to the Olivine Lighthouse now that our side quests are complete, and make the climb to Jasmine, who asks for our help again. Route 40 and 41 are quickly traversed and we land in Cianwood City. Noctis is our only super effective damage dealer for the fighting type gym, but quickly proves why it's better to get it banned now, as it can't even measure up to the first trainer's Hitmonlee. Expo bails us out there, and Peak handles Hitmonchan from the subsequent trainer. Noctis thankfully does better, barely, and is able to defeat the remaining trainers alone. Chuck might be a bigger problem than I realized. The team finishes their training on routes 39, 40, and 41, and begrudgingly head back to Chuck. I'm scared, man. All this bravado about going deathless is getting to me now. I need my first game stat buff to kick in for this, I think. I let Noctis take the lead as we challenge Chuck. Peck crit one-shots Primeape. Holy shit! Thank you, first game buff! I set up Reflect when Poliwrath is sent out, and it hits Hypnosis on Noctis and then Dynamic Punch when I pivot into Tochukaso. Surf and self-inflicted wounds lower our health too much, so I switch into Peak after landing Spore. Unfortunately for Peak, Chuck uses a full heal right away. I start hitting with Slam and eventually eat a Dynamic Punch before deciding to send Noctis back out. Dynamic Punch connects again. This feels familiar. And I pivot into Tochukaso again, who lands Spore. Poliwrath stays asleep, and Peak is able to use Slam and Surf to knock it out and earn us Badge 5. That battle highlighted the duality of the average run. Incredibly lucky off-rip, followed by absolute rubbish for several turns. But still I persist, with no deaths. Next up, we challenge Price. Utters leads against Seal, and a Thunder Punch plus Strength easily knock it out. Dugong has a bit more bite, but ultimately goes down in a similar fashion. I switch into Expo when Piloswine is sent out, and Fury Attack hits a full 5. Expo's Ember does decent damage and Icy Wind connects, lowering our speed. Expo was still too fast though, so we hit Ember again and dodge a Blizzard. Even resisted, I'm scared that that'd kill. Price pops a Hyper Potion, so we have no choice but to repeat the process and eventually KO Piloswine, earning the Glacier Badge. Before rushing back to Olivine and challenging Jasmine prematurely, I decide to be mindful and trade most of the team to the cap. I don't want a repeat of what happened last time. Peak leads against Magnemite and KOs the first and second with a quad-effective Earthquake. When Steelix finally comes out, Surf connects and one-shots, netting us Badge 6 with absolute ease. Could not have gone any differently than last time. All I had to do was prep. Professor Elm's Team Rocket related phone call prompts us to return to Goldenrod City, and we start climbing to the top to confront the Pretend Director. Since the team trained prior to battling Jasmine, we're even stronger to blitz the grunts than we were in Gold. Without a beast like Alakazam on the team though, the executive doesn't go down as quickly, but Richard and Peak still get the job done with 0 difficulties. Immediately following up the Milquetoast executive, Silver challenges us to a battle. After leading with Expo, I immediately pivot into Richard and get confused by Golbat. Golbat starts using the Flinch Fusion strategy with Bite, and we break through twice to KO with Rock Throw, after dropping to 45 HP. How the shit did Bite flinch me so many times? That was cancer-inducing. Feraligatr is up next, so I pivot into Utters. Gator pesters us with Scary Face and Bite, but a couple Thunder Punches hit their mark and finish it off. Peak comes out to Quake Magnemite and does big damage to Sneasel before handing it off to Expo. Haunter finally comes out and Dig almost one-shots. Haunter's Shadow Ball doesn't do so much, so Flame Wheel ends the battle. Expo evolves into Typhlosion, and Silver leaves to Reflect, reducing the power of physical attacks. None of the grunts guarding the real director pose a challenge, and we get the card key to finish the Rockets off once and for all. Peak takes on the Fortress with the level 36 Golbat and KOs with 2 Ice Punches. Silver's mom sends out Arbok, who goes down to Dig and Quick Attack after paralyzing us with Glare. I pivot into Utters to Thunder Punch Murkrow, and Noctis defeats Vileplume. The final executive gets no real chance to fight back as Peak washes Houndour, Quake's coughing, and Houndoom. Now that Team Rocket is done and dusted, we destroy the trainers of Route 44 and speeds through the ice path to Blackthorn. Peak and Utters take turns defeating the gym trainers' Dratini and Horsey lines with the corresponding punches, and the team rounds off what few levels they need before we confront Claire. These last few challenges have been such smooth sailing, there's no way Claire goes any differently. Peak takes the lead against Dragonair number 1. Dragon Breath paralyzes and does a bit more damage than we wanted, but it goes down eventually. Richard subs in partway through Dragonair number 2, also paralyzed by Dragon Breath, and Claire sends Kingdra in once it's down. Tochukaso is the perfect switch in, and it tanks Surf well before putting Kingdra to sleep. I start stacking damage with Fury Cutter, but Kingdra ends the streak immediately upon waking up by blinding us with Smokescreen. I switch into Richard to remove the debuffs and absolutely wall the Hyper Beam. On the recharge turn, Richard does decent damage with Headbutt, then Tochukasu comes back out to tank the obvious Surf. Spore puts Kingdra to sleep again, and I start using Sludge Bomb until Claire uses the Hyper Potion. This is not how I expected this to go. Claire then uses a full heal while we whittle away at Kingdra. I get spooked at a potential Hyper Beam KO, so I start to switch around before finally landing on Utters, who tanks the beam and finishes this menace off with Strength. The final Dragonair comes out and goes down to 2 Strength attacks after paralyzing us. That battle was pretty rough, but we're still deathless, so in the end it doesn't even matter. Claire does her dumb shtick again, and we grab the Fang and get badge number 8. We make the move east from our hometown and build our strength up on the way to Victory Road. I'm not going to let anyone fall to a stupid Graveler this time, so we make it to the end without issue and face Silver for the last time before we challenge the Elite Four. Expo's Fire Punch melts Sneasel, and Thunder Punch is a 2-hit KO on Feraligatr. Yeah, we just stayed in and flexed on the rival's ace with the type advantage. Thunder Punch is a crit 1-shot on Golbat, and Dig 1-shots Haunter, 2-shots Kadabra, and Richard's Earthquake wrecks Magneton. I probably could have swept with Expo there, but I wasn't about to take that chance. The team grinds to the level cap and we get our final stretch of the leg underway. Utters leads against the Psychic-type Will. Shadow Ball 1-shots Xatu, and then Jinx. Expo's Fire Punch KOs Executor after it sets up Reflect, and Slowbro goes down to 2 Thunder Punches after using Amnesia. The final Xatu just barely lives the Thunder Punch, then uses Confuse Ray, so I switch into Utters while Will heals and miss the KO with Shadow Ball. Confuse Ray and Psychic rack up damage, so I pivot back into Expo and finish the annoying Totem Pole off. I let Richard lead against Koga's Ariados. Rock Throw does half, and Ariados uses Baton Pass, sending Fortress out. It uses Spikes, and we hit hard with Earthquake, killing in 2. Ariados comes back out, dodges Rock Throw, and uses Giga Drain before I switch to Quake and finish it. Venomoth's Psychic doesn't do much, and I miss Rock Throw again. Earthquake misses out on the KO right after, so our damage starts to pile up. I give Noctis a moment to participate, and it finishes Venomoth off. After setting up Reflect, Richard comes back out to Quake Muck in 1 shot, and Crobat is finally sent out. It uses Double Team while I use Sandstorm. Iron Tail connects, but the damage puts it into full restore range, so we have to start all over again. Rock Throw crits, and connects again after to end the battle. I'm honestly impressed given the evasion increase. Good job, Richard. Noctis takes the lead against Bruno's Hitmontop. First we use Reflect, then I start to fish for Detect by using Hidden Power. I use Fly on the Detect turn and just barely miss out on a KO before using Hidden Power to finish it off. Reflect fades, so I set it up again as Onyx goes for Sandstorm, and then send Peek in to wash it away with Surf. Hitmonlee uses Swagger on us, doubling our attack, which guarantees our Earthquake kill. Peek snaps out of confusion and Quake kills Hitmonchan next, and Machamp comes out, does big damage with Cross Chop, and survives our +2 Quake with a sliver of HP before healing. I send Tochukaso in and get hit with Rock Slide, and use Spore. I then send Expo in and 3 Fire Punches end the battle. For Karen, Tochukasu is our opener. Umbreon's Sand Attack causes Spore to miss once before connecting, and we try to use Fury Cutter in vain. I switch into Richard who gets confused, then switch back into Tochukasu who eats more sand. I really hate Umbreon because of this shit. Spore lands again eventually, and I send Expo in who lands a crit Dynamic Punch. Hell yes! Richard uses Earthquake to KO Gengar, and Expo returns to KO Vileplume with Fire Punch. Murkrow can't handle Thunder Punch, and all that's left is Houndoom. I start with Dig, doing well over half, and Crunch does about a third. Karen uses a Max Potion surprisingly early, so our second Dig puts us back to where we were. Dig number 3 connects and ends the Hellhound. Once again, all that's left is Lance, and we find ourselves in a very familiar position. Entering the battle with no deaths on the table yet, we challenge the Dragon Master. Udders faces off with his Gyarados, and Thunder Punch does over half. A second Thunder Punch finishes it off. Strength does around a third to the first Dragonite, and we're paralyzed. I send Noctis in to use Reflect, and he gets paralyzed too, then hit with Thunder. Ouch. Our hidden power, which was Dragon type, does big damage with a crit, but misses the mark. I switch into Peak, who takes no damage from Thunder, and take marginal damage from Hyper Beam before Ice Punch KOs. Dragonite 2 attempts Blizzard, but misses, and Ice Punch hits and freezes. I use the free turn to set up Amnesia and KO right after. Thanks to Amnesia, Outrage from Dragonite 3 is easy to handle, and 2 Ice Punches knock it out. Charizard is sent up next, so I switch into Expo, who tanks Hyper Beam. 2 Thunder Punches soundly end the starter. Aerodactyl's Rock Slide and Hyper Beam tickle Richard, who just can't seem to land an attack to save his life before finally hitting an Iron Tail and ending this leg deathless. It took 5 games, but we did it. The Cyndaquil, Hoot Hoot, Wooper, Onix, Paraslines, and Miltank are added to the steadily increasing list of bans, and we prepare to take on our post-game Titan, seeing if we can surmount that challenge deathless too. You already know we smoked the Kanto gyms to get here, you don't need to see that again. The team is raring to go, and we face off with Red for the second time. Richard leads against Pikachu, and Earthquake insta-kills. Espeon is sent out next, so I switch into Udders. Reflect causes Shadow Ball to do significantly less damage, and Psychic hits twice for crazy damage as we trade and ultimately defeat it. I send Noctis out, who gets rocked by Snorlax's Body Slam and paralyzed too. Thankfully we survive the second with leftovers, thank you Celadon, and use Reflect. I send Richard out to set up Sandstorm and use Iron Tail, doing massive damage when it hits, and following it up with Earthquake to end the strongest mon on Red's team. I'm just glad he didn't use a full Restore or Rest. Venusaur's up next, so I switch into Expo. Sunny Day is set up, so I'm able to use a boosted Flamethrower to roast the starter. Blastoise is up next, and thanks to the sun, I can stay in and use Thunder Punch. It does half, but Blastoise uses Rain Dance. I switch into Tochukaso, who tanks the rain-boosted Surf and then get hit with Blizzard. Tochukaso doesn't know the meaning of the word die and lives with 13 HP before finishing Blastoise with Giga Drain. Finally, Charizard comes out and the rain-nerfed Flamethrower does nothing to Peak, who ultimately KOs with Surf. Even Red couldn't handle the deathless squad of Silver. On to the next, hopefully keeping this streak of deathless legs going.